Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Ask Melly Show, where I help you take control of your life the feminine way. Now, in this week's segment, we had a great question around stability. So we're actually going to look at why stability is the greatest gift you can give to yourself. Now, I want to talk about this because as bright, sensitive, creative, and spiritual women, stability is not an easy thing for us to grasp. It's so wrapped up within our creative flares and our sensitive natures that those parts of ourselves come from this chaotic and passionate love affair with life, if you will. So that creativeness comes from our emotions themselves. So when we live our lives in this throe of chaotic and intuitive passion, knowing that our magic stems from the very depth of our emotions themselves, finding stability in our life can feel a bit restrictive. We start asking ourselves that question of, well, what if that stability restricts who we are at our core? What if it restricts our creative, our sensitive, and our spiritual natures? But the thing is, when we have too much chaos, it causes tension. And let's face it, stress over time equals ill health. There is no way to deny that. We know when we are too stressed for too long, our bodies, our minds, our emotions do not cope. So we know that too much chaos is not a good thing without the right stability to support it. Now, my experience with this is I'm very natural at multitasking. I do it very, very well, and I love deadlines. I thrive in the chaos, if you will, of multiple tasks and deadlines and getting things done. But when I don't pay conscious attention to my stress levels while I'm living in that state, that prolonged impact of stress on my nervous system causes cycles of depression and anxiety. And what happens then is my body needs to find balance. So it forces me into these cycles of depression and anxiety and extreme rest so my body can find that balance that it needs. And it took me a while to fully understand what was happening. But when I realized that I had externalized my ideals of stability instead of internalizing it, everything changed for me. Now, I want to explain. So externalized stability is that thought of, if the outside things are perfect, then I will have stability. So if my job is secure, if I have money coming in, if I have the clients there, if my living arrangements are perfect, it's all those external elements to life that we go, if out here is perfect, then I will feel stable on the inside. But the truth is, we have no control over those things. You cannot control whether you will be made redundant tomorrow. You cannot control whether that money is always going to come in. You cannot control whether you have a stream of clients lining up outside your door, and you can't control what happens to where you live. But what you can control is internal stability, or what I like to call it, foundations. You can control your internal foundations. Now, the stability is found then in our thoughts, our actions, and our emotions. So it's the thought process of, I am in control of how I respond to the world around me. And that is how I gift myself stability. So I want to say that again because it is really, really powerful. And like I said, it took me a while to get my head around it. So I'm quite a stubborn person at times. So the internal stability is that thought process of, I am in control of how I respond to the world. And that is how I gift myself stability. But the question is, how do you get to that point of gifting yourself internal stability if you're stuck in external stability? This is where the stages of self come into play, because you need to address the fear that is causing the stress in the first place. What is the fear around losing these external stabilities? Where do you then need to forgive yourself for these external stabilities existing? There's nothing wrong with the fact you have been externally stabilizing. Everyone does it. But now that you know better, how are you going to change? So forgive yourself for having those external stabilities in the first place. Then you move into that point of self-belief where you go, you know what? I can find stability within myself. I can find foundations from within me rather than looking outside of me. Then you can see the future possibilities and go, okay, if I am in control of how I respond to the world, what does that look like next time this fear comes up? What does that look like in this situation? How does that look there? And you get to explore what life could look like. And then you get to step into that final stage of self and take action. You find yourself in those situations and you go, you know what? I'm okay. I have the internal foundations, the internal stability to move through what is happening right now. So what I've really learned by going through this process and learning how to internalize my stability is that internal stability doesn't hold us back or restrict us at all, which was one of my number one fears of doing this. I thought if I was bringing it within, then I was limiting myself. But there was no restriction at all. It actually provided me with a deeper and a stronger foundation, which was so much more stable than the external ones, that I actually became more creative, became more spiritual. I was able to do more emotionally, mentally, physically, because I knew the only thing I really had control over was myself. And the other thing about it is that my energy wasn't focused on what I had no control over. I wasn't constantly looking at things going, well, I can do something about that, when really I couldn't. There's some things you literally have no control over no matter how hard you try. So when I pulled that energy off that and brought it back to myself and went, oh, well, this is what I have to control. That's actually pretty easy. I suddenly had all this extra energy I could channel into my life. So really, it made it so much easier for me to just move through life without getting caught up in the external. So I hope that's helped you today when it comes to stability and finding that stability within yourself and why it is so important to gift that to yourself. Now, if you need any help understanding and moving through your emotions so you can take control of your life the feminine way, then I invite you to explore more tools, tips and trainings at mellys.com.au or join me next week for another episode of Ask Melly. Bye, everyone.